You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel. I am here with my man, Matt. What up, Matt?
What up, Jim?
What up? And if you don't realize, me and Matt do our Marvel stuff here at Weird Science. We have a Marvel Comics podcast. We've had a bunch of reviews on the channel here that hopefully people enjoy. And I asked him to join me for this video, which is basically us wondering what's going on with Marvel, what is happening with the books. And to preface it, again, we have a Marvel Comics podcast. Me and Matt would love to talk about 10 books. You know, it would bother us if there were so many good books, but we're getting to a point now where we're struggling to find one book to talk about. Now, a lot of times when you do a review podcast, when I do our DC one, we will just talk about books, whatever. But the Marvel one we have set up in the way that we just want to talk about stuff we like. We want it to be fun. Now, if you have listened to a lot of our reviews lately, it doesn't seem we like things that are having fun. We're losing our mind. But that's part of the gist of this whole video is, what is happening with Marvel? Why does it seem like they're struggling to even put out a couple great books, let alone good books, let alone mid books? I mean, me and Matt are trying each week to figure out what we can talk about, and we get to a point where we kind of throw up our arms and say, well, I guess we'll talk about this. Or we will never really any time, most of the time, saying, oh my God, I can't wait for that. And it's something that a lot of people are starting to talk about, and I thought that I'd have Matt join me, because originally this was going to be a video where we talk about what we call our do or die pull list, that you get $25 and you try to fit books in within a $25 pull list. And the fun of that is, if there's too many good books, you have to end up like, oh my God, what am I not going to get? And $25 is not that much.
No.
I couldn't even get close. You didn't even get, you didn't go over.
No, I didn't go over.
You were at 23.
I couldn't find another one.
Yeah. And so that's the whole concept. And I'd love to hear from people that, you know, if you are still reading Marvel, like what is on your pull list? Because most people I'm talking to, they haven't said they've given up on Marvel. Some people have. Some people have given up in the big two. But it's more the line of they're like, I just don't like enough to buy it. And they're kind of in a holding pattern. And that's kind of what we're at right now. And again, some of the other things, and we're talking about the idea that we have a Marvel podcast. People even said this week, why do you only do, say, one book a week anymore? And we said, we can't find that many good. We had a Star Wars comic podcast, Marvel books, that we just quit. And it was doing well. We ended up during Dark Droids. We couldn't take it anymore. We quit that to then do and get back to a regular Marvel comic podcast. And we're getting into that. And then in the meantime, Marvel seems to be outselling DC, which is crazy. But I figured, like, just to tell people, and maybe it's one of those things where I'm actually begging them to realize that we're not haters, we're just waiters. Maybe that would be the phrase, because we're waiting for things to be good. But in the meantime, too, some of the big things going on, like you like the X-Men, right? You want to read the books.
I really want the X-Men to do well, yes, of course.
And what X-Men books are you reading? Like what
Uncanny and regular X-Men.
Yeah.
That's it.
And for me, I'm actually still holding on. I gave up X-Men, and that's tough because most people will end up doing Uncanny and X-Men. They're the flagship deals. I'm actually still reading X-Force and Uncanny. And even then, if you said to me, would you consider them great? I wouldn't. They're okay.
They're mid.
Yeah, they're mid. But at least they're not fully upsetting me yet. But the other ones are so bad, and that's the other thing. I don't know if you agree, but Marvel has so many books that are just bad. Like, they're not even mid, they're bad. And I don't get it because, again, when we talk, and I'll even ask you, I'll tell, and people will probably laugh at our list or whatever, what we like, because I'm pretty much along with you. These aren't books that I would consider great that are our favorite books at Marvel, and none of them seem to be the big books. Like, why isn't there more hype around, say, Captain America, or even Spider-Man now? Unfortunately, Avengers with Jen
even
McKay.
Captain Marvel, what you said, the Alyssa Wong thing, just died.
I forgot. I'm just dying. Alyssa Wong is like the queen of 10 issues. They just bail on that.
But there's no Captain Marvel now because of it.
And if anybody, you may not a lot of people like Captain. She's still on the Avengers, so it's like having the Justice League of DC. Most of the characters will have their main books, but just the main books and the big books, Captain America, even like a Daredevil, which I was really into during the Chip Zdarsky deal. I'm not going to even tell you that Saladin Ahmed's Daredevil is good, better, and different. I have apathy and just stop reading. And that you get even side things like a Deadpool. That should be an easy one. I mean, and Cody
I'm still reading. I'm still hanging into Daredevil. It's still that 7 Deadly Sins stuff. And we're on issue number 15. So it's the same stuff.
So is it the idea? I mean, a lot of the books are bad, but a lot of the books are just not anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like there's a lot of hype. And then, in the meantime, before you get to your list, you also have things like Venom War. That for us having a podcast, I don't know anybody somebody will say, well, I'm reading them. Most of the time, though, when I hear from people, it's not that they're reading something because they love it. They're reading it, I always read that. Or
like an obligation.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Now, I know that what a lot of people will start talking about and saying, well, what about the Ultimate stuff? The Ultimate stuff's where it's at. I'm bored with that, too. It ends up where it's meandering. The Maker down the line stuff, and nothing is exciting me, and I just maybe this video is, I need people to get me excited and tell me what I should be reading, even though I try to read almost everything, but you have a lot of Steve Orlando stuff, that 2099 stuff. You have the Venom War that's just all over the place, but I've never heard one person mention it to me ever. And then you have just weird big books, and when I get to the deal of what I think are the better books, I still have to almost say they're not that great, but they're better than the best. It really is the idea of being better than some awful books. But tell people your list, and we'll talk a little bit about.
All right, here's my list. Aliens versus Avengers, which I know you don't read, but it actually is pretty good. And I don't know anything about Alien.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I don't have a connection, so maybe I'll. Then it's Hickman. And it has a weird schedule, too.
Yeah, it comes out every couple months.
That's one of your favorite books right now at Marvel, and it's a mini-series, and it's like a kind of out-of-continuity type of feel. So but we'll keep going.
Second one is another mini-series, Wolverine Revenge, which I know sparks a lot of conversation among people, whether they like it or not. But I actually like it, and it's probably almost over, too. So
Yeah, I think it has one more issue.
Yeah, and then Ultimate X-Men, which I never thought I would throw on my list ever.
Steve, you do understand, Aliens versus Avengers, people are like, okay, that's kind of cool. The Revenge and then the Ultimate X-Men is triggering everybody. But again, you're trying to find things to like.
I'm trying to find something. It's something
and it's
new,
something different and new. Yeah. I'm with you. So and I'll tell everybody that we haven't done a review on the podcast of Ultimate X-Men. One of the reasons Jason, who I review it with, went on vacation to Panama, and the other reason was I kind of was getting bored of all the Ultimate books, including that one. So I did catch up. It's what it is. I always have to beg people to not be mad because it's not.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to apologize.
No, and that's what it seems like all the Marvel books. And again, some people will start yelling things about, oh, this is woke stuff. But I just want good stories, and I don't see that we're getting them. But you keep going.
And the number one with a bullet.
This is the best.
And I'll stand by this one until I'll talk about it anytime. So will you, I'm sure. Spider-Boy.
Yeah, we like Spider-Boy.
That's my number one.
Even
by far.
Remember, I went through a lull where there was 2 issues I didn't really like, but I think, but that's the thing. And I know people don't like Dan Slott. People think Spider-Boy's ridiculous. It's just something different, and it seems fun. And that's one of the things I think that Marvel is hurting with. And the big thing, even when you sit there and say, who's your favorite Marvel writers? A lot of people say Jed McKay. You like Hickman, but he doesn't do a ton of things. But you get a lot of Al Ewing we're not fans of. You get a lot of Steve Orlando. Great guy, don't like his comics. And then you get these other guys, like a Cody Ziegler, a Ben Percy, Jerry Duggan. These sort of guys, they might be okay. Some people like them. I understand everybody has their favorites. These aren't people who I'm clamoring for. If I hear, oh my God, Cody Ziegler's on another book, that's not a must buy for me. Even people hate or love Hickman. At least I know that it's big. I also think that he's going to quit it at some point or whatnot, but it's still, at least that's some excitement. But I don't know that Al Ewing gives me that excitement. I know he doesn't. Some people might. And then you go to the X-Men stuff, And at one point, I did trust Jed MacKay for doing things, but with his Avengers book, no. And the Blood Hunt, no. It wasn't great. And I don't like the regular X-Men book. It's kind of boring. And just to, throw that in, this is kind of an impromptu thing, as I said, but I want to read X-Men. I desperately want to. I did another podcast that I was doing during the Krakoa era because I was interested. It felt big. I ended up quitting and stopped reading at the first Hellfire Gala. Yeah. I realized, and some people even laughed that it took me that long.
And you like fashion shows, too, which is weird.
I do. I was like, oh, my God, fashion show. and I'll tell you, the reason I always say it was Teenie Howard, which was a big part of it. Yeah. But the real big part was these side books that just like Aaliyah Williams and those things were just so bad.
Sometimes less is more, people. You don't need to pile on. That's what happened with Star Wars, too. It just became like 8 books about just
we
nonsense.
Liked it when it was those basic 4. And one of the 4, Bounty Hunters, Aphra, Darth Vader, Star Wars.
And then even just to get off topic here, but like Moon Knight, there's 2 different issues of Moon Knight next week.
Yeah. And 2
Fist
issues
of Khonshu and phases of the Moon Knight. Do we need that? I mean...
And they went with Jed MacKay had lightning in the bottle. People loved his Moon Knight, but then they had to dick around with it with, okay, we're going to kill him. Then they're going to start a new #1 deal with this, with the Hood. Then we'll come back with that. And it's just those are jumping off points. And I do think, again, that Jed MacKay is a decent writer. I think they elevated him, and I think he's overstretched now. I think that he has too much to do. He should be on things like a Moon Knight. We both liked the Black Cat when it started. That ended up getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you end up having tie-ins in, the, what's it called? The Null deal. You ended up where, she was doing Cosmic Cape. It's just, and also that's one of the things, too, you were kind of talking, that goes full in with this week's Amazing Spider-Man. There's not a lot of street-level books anymore either, and there's not a lot of, that sort of story going on. Everything is just over-the-top, cosmic, all this stuff.
Yeah, there's no Punisher anymore, classic Punisher that people want.
Yeah. Even when I know that the whole religious angle of Daredevil is there, but, even that feels like it's trying to do more and trying to do these things, and there's not a lot of books. I think that's why if you go through your list, which, again, I'll go with your list as well, those books aren't trying to be the biggest things ever. Something like a Spider-Boy is just fun, and I don't feel the fun that much.
It's well thought out, too, because it tied in with Superior Spider-Man, which tied into the Spider-Man series before that. It's its own little thing that doesn't have to deal with any of the other nonsense stuff that's going on in the
That's why I was surprised that it showed up in Amazing Spider-Man, but he was just there to show up.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to show up. We'll make an appearance here and there, but that's all.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, and the big thing that really kills me, the books that I wanted to start, because I'm newer to Marvel. Almost every book that I wanted to read from Marvel is not good for me, at least. Spider-Man. Fantastic Four, I actually said. I don't love Ryan North's Fantastic Four, but it's just kind of one-shots and you kind of dip in and out. And it's a bit uneven, but there's some okay things. But the X-Men stuff, and you could go down the list. Captain America has not been good. And it's not just like now. Everything has been off. Everything's off. And I do think, again, some of the writers are off, the editors. Then you get, Nick Lowe, who I had a video. He drives you nuts just as much as he drives me nuts, where he just antagonizes people. And it's just tough. And
anybody that takes a picture of themselves and puts it in the back of a comic
and then calls it the lowdown.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. And I'll go with your name. You do that Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
We'll put with your last name.
Maybe you put a caricature or somebody draws your face, but your actual picture? Come on.
And it just popped up it's weird. It pops up suddenly in one of the most hated runs that I've ever done. And it's just there almost like, hey, we're going to throw it in your face. Plus, even, going into Nick Lowe, it does seem, and people are really starting to realize, like, those letters in the back are all him. It's so bad. But overall, again, it's still selling. It amazes me. Part of the reason I think is that they don't reboot. But even so, I have a lot of people who are buying things and not reading them. I've talked to a lot of people who say, well, I'm going to keep buying and reading just because I always have. But I don't have a lot of people saying, what are you talking about? Marvel's great. Every book's great. Oh, my God. You have to start picking and choosing. And I said, one of my favorite, I'll tell you, some of the books that I think are good like Incredible Hulk, but I'm not going to say it's my favorite book in comics, and it's not close to being. I think that it's meandering. I like Phil Kenny Johnson, but that's the sort of thing we keep getting at Marvel. The idea that, well, it's better than the other crap, and that's not good enough. And the big books, Avengers, Spider-Man, we'll just go to Cap. They should be bigger. They should be big books that people are enjoying, and I don't think that Marvel really is putting a lot of effort into making things enjoyable. They're not thinking the idea of let's make fun comics. I don't know what they're doing, because some people will say they're on soapboxes and trying to push agendas or whatever. I think it's beyond that. I think that nobody really knows how to tell a story, and it's just not fun.
Yeah.
And the art's okay. But yeah, it's trouble. But again, we were going to have a video of, hey, here's our top 5 or 6 books. This is what we can get for $25. We couldn't come up with them. And just to let everybody know, again, this week, we will be doing our Marvel Comics podcast. We could pick, we have one book that we're interested in enough to talk about. It's Ultimate Spider-Man. And we are getting to the point where we think that's even boring.
Yeah, I mean, the all-time low was when the only book we had to pick was Ultimates.
Yeah, and again, people fought back at us, and people seem to like that more than I'd ever imagined. But even then, like, it's like you have a pull list and you realize that you don't like anything, but you don't want to give up reading comics. So you just throw some random book in each week just so you have something. It's almost like we're trying to support our local comic shop, but we have a podcast that we don't want to end. We actually had a week where we didn't even have a show because we didn't like anything that came up. And this is not liking things, not reading it and saying, oh, that was an off issue. This is stuff where we just didn't care. We didn't care enough to go. And I'm looking at the deal just to have what people would have this week. We have like Spider-Man Reign 2, which is an odd thing. We read Spider-Man Reign, the first deal for the Patreon. It wasn't great, but we were looking forward to it coming out. We couldn't stick with it.
But I give Kari Andres credit for that one just because he's trying something different.
Yeah, he's doing something crazy. But
yeah, it's wild. The art is really good, too.
Now, how many people listening are reading Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider?
No, nobody's reading that.
I see a lot of great reviews, but how many people are really reading Scarlet Witch?
Well, that's another thing, too. Scarlet Witch is Steve Orlando. Avengers Assemble was Steve Orlando. And then the 2099 stuff is Steve Orlando.
There's too many Steve Orlando books going out.
Just do one book and do it really well. We don't need everything.
I was actually excited. You like the Avengers versus the aliens. I was actually excited for Predator versus Black Panther. Kind of that just fell apart. It's not very good. But I don't know who's reading that. You have, like you said, Phases of the Moon Knight and Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu with Jed MacKay coming back and having it. I haven't seen anybody like, oh my God, it's great. He's back. We're going to go. This Jed MacKay. It's just people have seen.
Yeah, he's back because you killed him off for some reason. Why? Just to bring him back.
Here's one too that we're going to. Not that how many people are getting this. How many people know that Marvel Zombies Dawn of Decay is even a thing?
You said it was pretty good.
I've been reading it. It was funny. Here's the thing. It's funny because it's ridiculous and it was kind of funny. Who's even knowing? Miles Morales Spider-Man with Cody Ziegler. I don't hear anybody talking. Immortal Thor with Al Ewing. And some of these might be better than I give it credit for. I haven't read for a while, but still. Daredevil board. Chasm, Curse of Cain. I like Ben Reilly, but it's just not hitting an Avengers Assemble with Steve Orlando. Yes, I think that's Steve Fox, right? Yeah. He's that good. You have a lot of guys, and that's the other. There's a lot of writers that I just like, ooh, that's trouble. But there you go.
What about what if Minnie became Captain Marvel? Those outsourced Italian writers and artists that make these.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm telling you, like that's just what's coming up. But I don't ever get hyped for anything that's coming out. Usually in a week now. And I want to like everything.
Wolverine by Saladin Ahmed's pretty good.
That's pretty. The second issue was a little down, but I'll go. And I didn't mention the X books only because we don't do them for our podcast. But I'm
reading that one too.
Yeah, definitely. I actually am too. And there's some where I actually thought Phoenix was okay at first, but then that fell apart.
That was the tracing and stuff that was going on.
Yeah, that was bad too. You have that. And then there are Star Wars books that are starting the new deal, but they're not very good either. Storm. It's frustrating. But again, it's almost like this is not the best of the week. It's please tell us what we could like and what you like, and maybe we can give something second chances or something. But it's really the idea that we're struggling with Marvel.
Yeah.
I want to see if anybody agrees or disagrees.
I would say that for me personally, in the past 20, 30 years, well, I don't know, however long I've been reading these stupid things, this is the most amount of comics that I've skipped from Marvel ever.
Even though people hated the all new, all different, I
like that a lot.
And when I caught up I was reading a bunch of things, and I wasn't even a Marvel fan even close, and I was reading more than this. And that's the big thing. And I end up where I do some stuff with Wes from Thinking Critical. I'm on the Comics Aficionados. Me and him have on his Patreon a comic review show. We try to, just like we try to review everything. We're not doing any Marvel pretty much. Well, because even he can't take, it's not just us. There's a lot of people, and just can't bring myself.
No, because what happens, this is how way I rationalize it. If I don't read a book, I have more free time to do something else, right? So what happens is you skip one book, you skip two, you skip 10, and then you never go back to them.
Well, that's
because you're like, I have free time to do other things.
And I think that what happens is there are people who will just stop reading. There's also people, and I said to a lot of people about this, when they say, because everybody's on YouTube or whatever, yelling, oh, this Amazing Spider-Man was terrible. Oh, my God. And then you'll have the guy come in, well, why are you reading it? You shouldn't be reading it then. They don't realize that this is like the last grab hold of comics for them. Like if there's a lot of people, if they don't read Spider-Man, they're not reading anything, and they're done. And they love comics, they just don't love the comics now.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to a comic book store and spending hard-earned money on these,
yeah, because we do get.
I wouldn't be buying it. I wouldn't be buying any of these.
Yeah, no, and at some of that point, we try not to use that concept of how much an issue costs and things, because
it's a big
we don't
deal,
have to deal with it, but it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, of course.
And you're not gonna want. But again, I'll give a little shout out to anybody listening still that ends up being a Marvel fan and consider themselves a Marvel fan, and some people who will buy Spider-Man no matter what, or will buy whatever their favorite character is. I think that Marvel fans are way more loyal than DC fans, and I think that Marvel takes advantage of them. I think they fully take advantage of the idea that everybody, is very loyal and will go through the, ups and downs, the peaks and valleys. But why then do they antagonize them like a Nick Lowe? Why don't you give people anything? And all I want is fun stories, and we're not getting them. That's the whole thing for me. That might be the thumbnail. Where are the fun stories? Because I don't see it. And yeah, it does get into that other realm of politics and what this and I usually try not to get involved with that, but that's still at points that could be fun, but they don't they don't want to tell a story. Everybody's struggling. I think that might be in general in comics, yet we love a lot of indie stuff. But I think that there's a new wave of writers that care more about a message or what they want to write than actually giving fans what they want and writing it in a fun way. So there's the ending, a deal. But thanks for joining me, Matt. Yep. This kind of, like I said, takes place of what we were going to do, talking about what we hope were some of our favorite books and what we really enjoy. But this is what it is. It's the state. I mean,
it might be reboot time.
Yeah, and they don't really reboot, but maybe some sort of change a lot of creative teams and stuff.
I mean, hopefully they're paying attention. I know you don't want to talk about DC, but at least if they're paying attention to what they're doing over there, it might spark a little bit of a fire. And that's the thing. All in at DC, I do think is getting better and better, but they don't know how to market it, and it's a disaster. So Marvel still outsells them, and that's a problem too. When you outsell them and you keep selling, you just think everything's fine. I think Marvel's at a point where they know it's not fine, but it's still selling, so they don't care. They can't be looking at these books and think that this is a strong period of Marvel Comics. It's impossible to think that it's down. And it's down to the point, like you said, where we just skip books. And I think people are like, well, if things are going great, you will give a weird book that you're not sure you like, you'll give it a chance. But when you see things like Negasonic Teenage Warhead deal, you know that it's going to be pretty bad, because most of the other things are bad. So you don't have you can't give that book a chance when you get burned by Spider-Man. Because if you have a reader that's loyal and he's reading something or she's reading something and they like it, if they drop it, it takes so much more work to get them back.
Yep.
If they ever come back.
Quite frankly, I mean, if you go with the idea of business deal, it's easier and better to get a existing customer to get more than to get a new customer. New customer's hard. And so what they're doing is they're just burning everything's just burning to the ground. Yeah. But some people like to dance. They're like, I can't wait till they all go down.
Everybody wants to burn everything down and start over. And sometimes that's not the best thing.
I don't want to say like, oh, Marvel and DC, they're done. I'm never reading them because that's what I do. I love it. That's all I do. I read comics and make dirty songs. That's it. And I love comics. And I sit there. I'm like, why am I doing this? But that's it. We went a little longer than I thought. We got excited at the end. But please let us know what your favorite books are. And really think about the idea. Is this the idea that it's a great book that you can't wait for? There are going to be people who have things that maybe I don't like that that's the case. Or is it the last hope of, well, it's not that bad? And I like a lot of times, like, again, I always think of The Incredible Hulk. That I like it more because I think that Philip Kennedy Johnson's a good guy than a lot of times that I think that the story's really good. It's kind of meandering, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I like him. But yeah, I don't really have anything anymore that's a must read. And we like some of the quirky books. That
throw some $25 pull list in the chat and see what,
like
what you
would
come
you
up
buy
with.
if
It's
you only
harder
had
than you think.
$25. Yeah, and it used to be hard because you had too many. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And again, that's the other thing to go with the play, too, because if you love all the X-Men books, you can't have them all.
Nope.
But yet, I wouldn't want all of them. That would be a fun little... It is the crazy, fun dilemma of having too many books and not having enough money. It's worse when you're like, I can't even get to $25.
I'm flush with cash and I can't spend it.
Yeah, I can't spend it. So, and that just shows you, like, we want to take, please take our money, but they don't. They can't. But that's it. That is it for the longer video. Thanks for joining me, Matt. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little impromptu deal. We'll probably come back eventually with our top $25 tour that pull us. I don't know when. We're also planning on doing some Star Wars comics if they improve once they come back. But we'll talk about that. But you'll hear me and Matt talking about all different comics and stuff like that on the reviews. So check those out. And we'll talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird Science is the revolution. Weird Science is the revolution.